is Rebecca Johnson, and I love Batman v Superman: Dawn of Justice. And I am publishing a series of videos exploring the reasons why I am such a fan of Zack Snyder's film. In this series, you'll find my thoughts on topics that matter to me, like Larry Fong's cinematography, character analysis on Lex Luthor and Lois Lane, the Christian imagery, what I find hopeful about the movie, and yes, I'll address the critical reception. So if you're interested in any of those topics, I hope you will get something out of this series and find out why Batman v Superman: Dawn of Justice has had such a profound, heartfelt, and inspiring impact on my life. Welcome to the Duck Milk Pride YouTube channel. My name is Rebecca Johnson, and this live stream is part of a series I'm calling Reading Reviews with Rebecca, which will analyze the critical reception of Batman v Superman: Dawn of Justice through the negative reviews written by top critics from Rotten Tomatoes, one review at a time. This is not meant to belittle anyone's opinions, but rather serve as a study of art criticism and how we discuss film. I'm hoping that this endeavor will encourage all of us to be better consumers of cinema, which is something that I always try to do for myself personally. So this is a good way to practice that. So this week I'll be reading through a review from Newsday titled Batman v Superman: Dawn of Justice Review, Zack Snyder's dull disaster may knock you unconscious. Unconscious. I almost said unconscious. Knock you unconscious. Written by Rafer Guzmán. I hope I got that somewhat close. My apologies if I did not pronounce the name correctly. I have linked this review in the video description, so if you'd like to follow along with me, you can certainly do that if you would like, and I actually encourage you to do so. If Rafer should ever see this video, I just want to say that I'm aiming to do this as civilly and analytically as possible, and I would ask that anyone watching live or posting in the comments to do the same. I am simply taking a look at the criticism for and of BVS now from an historical point of view, given that these reviews were used by Warner Brothers in their decision-making process regarding the DC Extended Universe. Due to the poor reviews for Batman v Superman, the tone and approach to the franchise were changed for Justice League and ultimately led to the destruction of the Snyderverse 5-film arc that were set to come after BVS and after Justice League. We were supposed to get a 5-film arc, but didn't because of reviews like this. Now, before I get into Rafer's thoughts, I'm sure there are viewers out there who might think, well, this person is a professional film critic for Newsday and does this for a living. What do you have to bring to the table, Rebecca, that you can't get out of this review, that I can't get out of this review from Newsday? So I'm just going to provide a little bit of background on me and what I can provide from my personal perspective of art criticism. So I hope this fills in some gaps and answers some of those questions. I graduated from the University of Alabama, Roll Tide, with a degree in telecommunications and film and a focus on broadcast television production. While I've never been to film school, in my television and production experience, I've learned about and have lots of practice in operating cameras, shot composition, and editing. Lighting, green screen, and audio are my weak spots, admittedly, but I've been working on those. After working in local TV news, running cameras, and working in production, I got a job at Turner, now Warner Media, or whatever they're calling themselves now, for 14 years. I worked with networks, or brands as they call them now, like TBS, TNT, Adult Swim, Cartoon Network, Boomerang, True TV, and Turner Classic Movies as a video encoding specialist. I also did a fair amount of closed captioning work and DVD and Blu-ray QC. In case you are wondering how I podcasted about Supergirl and the DCEU films while working for a Time Warner company, I actually got permission and clearance from my human resources representative. If you think I wouldn't criticize stories that were under the same corporate umbrella, that was never a problem nor a concern for me. If I thought the Supergirl TV series or a DCEU film had faults, I said so. In the last 17 years, I have served as a director, technical director, and camera operator at my local church in a live production capacity. I've been a video editor for 17 years, having worked in Avid, Final Cut, and Premiere Pro CC. In my day job, I shoot and edit news and documentary-style video content that involves interviews and narrative storytelling. I'm also currently an amateur photographer and am aiming to improve my efforts in still photography. You can check out my work over at Instagram at @TheDerbyKid. Link is in the video description below. While discussing these film reviews, music and film scores will inevitably come up. It may be good to know that in my life I have played piano, handbells, clarinet, bass clarinet, bassoon, acoustic guitar, and have even started learning how to play the ukulele. I've played in marching bands, symphonic bands, and wind ensembles, and have sung in many choirs. While I don't consider myself a world-class musician, far from it, actually, I do know some things about music and am a big fan of film scores and soundtracks. In addition to my production and musical experience, I have had lots of experience in art criticism. I've been podcasting about television and film since 2009 and do so on a regular basis with Supergirl Radio, a podcast I co-host about the CW Supergirl TV series. I am also a writing contributor to the Justice League Universe podcast that offers analysis on the DCEU films. You might even hear my voice occasionally in recordings and audio commentaries over there. I'm not an expert, but I care deeply about film, television, storytelling, and art. So I hope this gives you a background on where I'm coming from. If anyone is interested, my ukulele practicing is still continuing. You should see my calluses today. I probably played the most today that I've played in a long time, or this weekend, really. I've played a lot of ukulele this weekend, learning Rainbow Connection from the Muppet movie, one of the classics. And I also dug into trying to play Smells Like Teen Spirit from Nirvana. So I've got a wide range of songs I'm trying to play in the ukulele arsenal of music, the repertoire, as it were. I guess so. That's my update on my ukulele playing. Loving it, loving it, loving it, loving it. Very fun. It's actually for me easier to play the ukulele than to play the acoustic guitar, probably because the ukulele is much smaller, and I can actually get around some of the chords a little better. But that's neither here nor there. We are here to talk about this review of Batman v Superman: Dawn of Justice from the outlet Newsday. So let's get into Rafer's review. So the title of this is Batman v Superman: Dawn of Justice Review: Zack Snyder's dull disaster may knock you unconscious. That's a pretty lengthy title. I would maybe bring that down a couple of words, but even though I don't agree with the title, it's actually making an effort and plays into the film's versus aspect, Batman v Superman, like a boxing match. So this at least lets me know what the critic is thinking before we even get into the body of the review. So even though it's not something that I agree with, there's actually an effort. A lot of these reviews don't even make an effort. Some of them are called like Batman v Superman: Dawn of Justice Review. So this one at least made an attempt to be creative and to at least give a tease for what the review is actually about. So I appreciate it from that perspective. Under that, it also says plot. Two DC superheroes duke it out while the fates of Gotham and Metropolis hang in the balance. And yeah, that seems like an accurate description of the film, though it's a major simplification of what the film is actually about. Two DC superheroes duking it out for only a short time in the film. It has a very short sequence within the actual complete runtime of the film's length. So while it's an accurate description of things that happen in the film, it's not a complete description of that. So I guess really you can't fit all of what Dawn of Justice is in just one little plot synopsis there, but I just wanted to mention that. It also displays some of the actors in the film: Ben Affleck, Henry Cavill, Amy Adams, and Gal Gadot, and it says the length is 2 hours and 33 minutes. Critics love to talk about the runtime of this theatrical release, which If they had gotten the director's cut, or at least the ultimate edition, man, they would have been complaining. But it's actually better than the theatrical cut. But I guess your mileage may vary. It also mentions that the film is rated PG-13 for intense action, dash violence, and some bloodshed. And then it says, bottom line in all caps, this overlong and humorless slugfest may knock you unconscious, unquote. So, really playing into the fighting aspect of the film, which again is a very small portion of the film from its entirety. When you look at it from the big picture, the fighting aspect is actually a very small portion of it. And calling Batman v Superman Dawn of Justice overlong as a description is an exaggeration, which we have covered before. 2.5 hours has actually kind of become the norm in film. I usually now go into a film expecting it to be 2.5 hours long. And when it's not 2.5 hours, I'm like, oh, great. It's a little shorter. But now I just anticipate that most films are going to be 2.5 hours or something close to it. So calling it overlong, I think, is being a little dramatic. Let's be honest. But some critics just do not like that runtime. Although quite a lot of films, including very famous and classic films, are somewhat around the 2.5 hour mark. So I don't know why the critics make a big deal of it. It's very strange to me, but they do that. We have also gone over this before, but BVS is not humorless. Characters like Perry White, Martha Kent, and Alfred Pennyworth provide comedic relief when needed. There are jokes, like there are some jokes where you have to know what they're talking about to laugh about it. And then there are some that are more blatant, quippy, kind of bantery jokes that are something that even Joe Schmo public can pick up on. So there are jokes in the film, and there are moments of intentional levity. So I don't know why someone would describe Batman v Superman Dawn of Justice as humorless. My only guess is that the person writing that doesn't have much of a sense of humor, him or herself. That's my guess. I don't want to label anybody, but to say it's humorless is actually it's just a flat out lie. I'm just gonna say that it's not humorless at all. This review also gives it a 1.5 stars out of 4 stars. So I now I'm curious, and maybe we'll find out. But I wonder what the 1.5 stars is for. Why 1.5 stars instead of 0? Because it seems like this reviewer did not like the film. So I wonder why 1.5 stars. That's always kind of an interesting gauge for me. You could have given it just 1 star. Why the half? What what's the half for? What really saved this review from being a 1 star review? What pushed it over to the half? I'm curious. All right, so let's actually get into the actual body of the review. These were just things that are just up at the top of the review. So this is what the review starts out saying. Quote, critics entering an advanced screening of Batman v Superman Dawn of Justice were asked to sign a confidentiality agreement promising not to reveal plot or character developments before the film's release. At least 2 spoilers, however, are worth revealing up front. The first concerns Ben Affleck, whose casting as Batman raised a caps lock outcry back in 2013. Surprise, he's pretty good. With silvery temples and haunted eyes, Affleck brings a welcome touch of vulnerability to a traditionally ice-cold character. His altered Batman voice is a low rumble that feels almost warm compared to Christian Bale's threatening hiss in the Dark Knight films, unquote. So I wonder if this is the half that put it over. Maybe all of the 1.5 stars that this film got from this reviewer, maybe it was all Ben Affleck. I don't know. That's my guess. Rotten Tomatoes top critics love mentioning they got a special screening of Dawn of Justice. It is so important that they mention this to you, and they especially like to mention to us as the reader or the readers how the filmmaker in the studio asked them not to reveal plot points. Oh, they love it. It's so exclusive. It makes them feel so special. Oh my gosh. Not to mention this again, but I'm gonna. But fans got that same treatment. This was not a special thing that only critics got. This was not exclusive to them. Fans also got the video ahead of the time in the special fan screening of Zack Snyder asking us not to reveal any of the plot points or any of the spoilers, just to preserve the enjoyment of the audience who would see it later. That's just common courtesy. I don't know why this is always such a big thing that these film critics put in here. Just don't reveal things in the movie prior to the release of the film. Be cool about it. It's not that big of a deal. Just don't reveal any plot points. But it is weird that the review's like, but there are some that are revealing up front. It's bizarre. I don't know. That whole thing about the getting the special treatment, I guess it just makes critics feel so good about that. Uh but I guess on the upside, I'm glad that this critic from Newsday can be objective, it seems like. Seems like Guzmán hated BBS. However, there is an objective analysis that's going on of Ben Affleck's performance as Batman. Although I would say that there's an unnecessary comparison to Christian Bale's interpretation, because the fact is that those two, Christian Bale and Ben Affleck's Batman, come from different stories, from different universes. They're two different Batmen telling different Bat stories and directed by different Bat filmmakers. So they're not gonna be the same. They're intentionally trying to be different. So I think the comparison there is unnecessary. All right, continuing on, it says, quote, the second spoiler is that in most other respects, Batman v Superman Dawn of Justice is not a good movie, unquote. Neither of these are actually spoilers. So the two spoilers that Guzman wants to reveal to us are that Ben Affleck is pretty good as Batman. And then the other one is that Batman v Superman is not a good movie. Those are not spoilers. I don't know what the purpose of that is. But I'm interested to know. We'll see if we get there, but I'm interested to know and I'm curious to learn why Batman v Superman is not a good movie. I'm sure we can count on this review to be full of justifiable arguments backed with evidence to support this statement. So let's keep reading to see if that is what we get. Continuing on, it says it's quote, its problems are built into its title, which promises a big battle between the two DC Comics good guys, but teams them back up for a future franchise, Justice League. To manage this hate-love flip-flop, screenwriters Chris Terrio and David S. Goyer invent some very flimsy and mercurial motivations for our two heroes, unquote. So I'm a little confused at this point. Is BVS a bad movie because it has Batman and Superman fighting, but then later teaming up? Is that what makes it a bad movie? Because this is where we recently heard that the spoiler alert is bad movie, and then it goes into this whole thing about them teaming up. So why is that a bad thing? Is that what makes it a bad movie? Because I'm a little confused because given the story and the character arcs that they both go through, I would argue that that's what makes it a good movie. So I don't really understand those statements there. All right, I'm gonna hop in the chat real quick to address this comment from Lost It to Bostic saying most of these critics were looking for reasons to dislike BBS. Humorless, of course, because all films need to be funny. Overlong, would these critics dislike Gone with the Wind or the Ten Commandments? 100% Lost It to Bostic. That's what I don't understand about some of these reviews is that even let's just for the sake of argument, let's say that BVS didn't have any humor in it. That still would not make it a bad film. Because there are lots of films that are classics that are studied in film schools and by people everywhere who are interested in films that don't have a lot of humor in them. Just they don't. That's not what makes them a good or bad film. There are other reasons why those things are considered classics or great films. Gone with the Wind has some humor in it, but it's a long movie. It's what, 4 hours? I've seen it before in a theater where it was like 2 hours, then an intermission, then another 2 hours. It's a long film. It's a long film, and a lot of it is very serious. There's a lot of tragedy, and Scarlett O'Hara's I don't know why I said it like that, she's Southern. I could just speak in my normal accent, but Scarlett O'Hara goes through some real tragedies in her life. A lot of things happen in the South, during, Civil War Reconstruction stuff. So that's that's not, humor in that film or its short runtime. If it had a short runtime, that's not what would make it a great film. Gone with the Wind is a great film because it tells the story of the American South, and it shows the dynamics that go on between different characters, and has really interesting characters that have great epic stories. Gone with the Wind was, by all accounts, the first big like film blockbuster. The big movie blockbuster started because of Gone with the Wind. And that sort of sets the standard of what makes a great epic film. So I think it's so strange. Why would you base a good or bad movie on the runtime? Why? Titanic is like 4 hours. It's a great film. It's a great film. It's one of the best films ever made, in my opinion. Um, so I don't understand. Maybe if you think humor is what makes a great film, like, I guess people want humor, but I've seen lots of films that don't have a lot of humor in it. That doesn't make them good or bad films. Some of the like, I know Christopher Nolan talked about that when he was talking about how some of his films have very little humor, and a lot of the humor in, like, a Christopher Nolan film is based in character or story, and he talks about how when he was growing up, I think Christopher Nolan's around the same age as me, but, he talks about when he, was growing up, like, he would go see Indiana Jones films, and some of those films, like, Temple of Doom is very, uh it has a lot of things in it that are supposed to make you, laugh, but some of the Indiana Jones films, Raiders of the Lost Ark, well, that goes to some dark places. Last Crusade goes to some really dark places in terms of, serious, grim natures. So there I don't understand critics basing their analysis of the film based on A, humor, which is subjective anyway. What you might find funny, I might not find funny. But the fact that there are elements in BVS that are supposed to be moments of levity, that are supposed to be comedic, it doesn't matter whether or not I find it funny or not. It only matters that there's an attempt in there. And also, I don't understand basing your critique on the total runtime. That's nonsense. A film could be great and it could be 5 minutes long. It could be the greatest short film ever made and it could be really short. Or it could be the greatest long form, big budget 4 hour epic that's ever been made. It doesn't matter what the runtime is. It matters of pacing and storytelling and characters and music and effects and lighting and camera shot composition. Like all of that stuff is what matters. The runtime, who cares? The runtime is what it is. I don't understand all of that, but that's just me. Let's see. David says, Gone with the Wind is just short of 4 hours. Actually, could be shorter if you take out credits and in music. And David says technically it's 3 hours and 58 minutes. So short of 4 hours. I would probably round that up just for the sake of talking about it. But technically, thank you for being specific about that. Let's see. Soul Forsaker, I think is the username, says BVS respects the fact that the world reacts to these characters. Man of Steel did so as well, thus respecting the audience's real world struggle and finding resolution. Three heroes find themselves. I think that's a great way to put that, and I think that's a good summation of the character journeys. If you had to really boil it down to the essence of those journeys, I think that's a great way to put it. So thank you for sharing that comment. Okay, so I'm going to go back into the review. Picking up where I left off, it says, quote, initially, they view each other, Superman and Batman, as dangerous vigilantes, pot me kettle, though it's Batman who's angriest. He blames Superman, played by Henry Cavill, for a city-wrecking fight against General Zod, see 2013's Man of Steel, that leveled Bruce Wayne's financial headquarters and killed countless people, unquote. So, yeah, I mean, that seems like a pretty good motivation for Batman in the story. So I think that's a good summation of Bruce Wayne's motivation for why he has beef with Superman. So thank you to the reviewer for summarizing that. All right, continuing on, it says, quote, but didn't that battle take place in Superman's Metropolis? Did Wayne commute there from Gotham? Director Zack Snyder does his best to allow two versions of New York City to coexist, but the question nags. Does the question nag? Does it? But the question nags. When Batman finally visits Lex Luthor, played by Jesse Eisenberg, distractingly twitchy, he's cheerfully told, you ought to hop over the harbor more often. And then it says, so there's a ferry, unquote. So is Guzmán's argument here that Batman's motivation isn't good because the Battle of Metropolis took place in Metropolis? Is that the argument? And that Bruce Wayne has a company located in Metropolis? That's the question that nags here. Talk about something flimsy. Bruce Wayne is a rich guy who owns a company. Why couldn't he have an office building in Gotham and an office building in Metropolis, especially when they're the cities that are located so close together, you can take a ferry to the other city. In other stories, Bruce Wayne visits Metropolis all the time to do business there. I don't know why this is such a strange concept for this reviewer. And this I have to point out is not the first time one of these film critics, one of these top critics from Rotten Tomatoes talks about this. They cannot wrap their minds around the fact that Metropolis and Gotham are cities that are next to each other, or at least separated by some sort of harbor, some sort of a body of water. They cannot wrap their brains around it. But there's a reason that is the case. The storytelling wants us to connect these cities together to show that there's a closeness, to show that there is some common ground that they share, that Bruce and Clark would have some commonalities because they're connected, even physically, through those two cities and through that ferry, through that body of water. I don't understand why that's so hard to understand. Why is that so hard to connect the dots there? The critic says the question nags. Only for those who can't understand that a businessman might do business in another city with another location of his company. That happens all the time. All the time. I know of people who fly all the time to go for fly to work 5 days a week. I've had friends and family do that. They travel to different places, sometimes other countries, to go and do things for work. This is not uncommon. I do not understand what the problem is with this. And I have to say, if this is the professional film critic, I just want to reemphasize, this is a professional film critic who has a review in Rotten Tomatoes under being a top critic. If this professional film critic's big hang-up with this film is that there are two cities located near each other requiring a ferry to get to one place from the other, something that happens in reality and makes a lot of sense for the story and the characters, this, I hate to say it, may not be the highest quality of film criticism that we're going to get, because this is a really stupid hang-up to base your critique of the film on. I hate to say it. I don't want to be judgy, but this is not something that makes it a 1.5 star film out of 4. If this is all there is, this is a big portion of the review, FYI, that focuses on this. So I don't think this is the best or highest quality of film criticism that we've ever gotten in this series that I'm doing. But for the sake of this project, I will keep going. I will see it through to the end. We're not going to stop here. except to hop in the chat real quick. So we will get back into the review. But David says Bruce Wayne could build a private maglev train to go between cities in the comics, not separated by the sea, if he wanted to. Yeah. Yeah. There could be all kinds of transportation that happens between Gotham and Metropolis. It doesn't have to be a ferry. The ferry was just a cool idea. I actually like it. I think it's a cool idea. But yeah, he could do anything he wanted to. And Lost It to Bosick says, "Oh, these critics can wrap their mind around the two cities. They've just chosen not to." That's the question, is it? That's the question that nags. Why would they focus on this? There's so much else, like amazing things going on in this film, and that's the thing that some of these critics chose to focus on. Bizarre. It's just truly bizarro world to me. That this is the thing that really just I can't get past it. All right, so let me go back into the review. It says, quote, "These and other logical quibbles, people constantly knowing things they shouldn't or don't know things they should, prevent the film from making sense, even on its own terms. What's more, the title card bout turns out to be a mere padding before another unrelated climax. No spoilers, but it involves a mystery woman played by Gal Gadot, whose first name is presumably Wonder. Speaking of women, Amy Adams' return as Lois Lane in Amy Adams returns as Lois Lane in a distressed damsel mode, unquote. Now, I can understand the criticism. I don't understand the criticism of the ferry and the two cities and Bruce Wayne working in Metropolis, having a building in Metropolis. Those are dumb. I think those are dumb criticisms. It means nothing in the greater context of analyzing a film. It doesn't. But I can understand the criticism here of I'm assuming that this person is talking about Lex Luthor knowing about Clark and Bruce's identities. If that is the case, if that's what I'm assuming is correct, I can understand that criticism. It's not ever explained in any version of Batman v Superman that I've ever seen, but honestly, that doesn't break the film for me. Lex Luthor is a highly, highly intelligent character, and it probably wouldn't be that difficult for someone like that to piece together the fact that Bruce Wayne has a lot of money and he could probably build the Batmobile and the Batwing. You could narrow it down by who has the money, who has the industry know-how, who has the intelligence to do that thing. He could probably narrow it down to Bruce Wayne, and especially if he tracked Batman's location and his activity, he probably could narrow it down to Gotham City. And then once you get down to Gotham City, you could probably only have a couple people to choose from. So it's probably in reality not that hard to piece together that Bruce Wayne is Batman. And Clark Kent writes stories on Superman. So you could probably put two and two together if you've dug enough into Clark and Bruce. So I just chalk it up to Lex Luthor being highly intelligent and it not being that difficult to figure out who's who. So to me, that's not a big make or break thing for this film. What is something that I have a huge problem with, a logical quibble, if you will, the idea that Lois Lane is a damsel in distress. These critics, this is not the first person to call Lois a damsel in distress. But these critics never justify why they claim that. Why call her a damsel? I would like some examples, please. Lois Lane, to me, in my opinion, does not get the credit she deserves in these reviews. Lois goes toe-to-toe with an alleged terrorist in Africa. She investigates Lex Luthor and gathers so much evidence that she gets proof of what he's done. She rescues Superman from certain death. She is face to face with Lex Luthor and calls him a psychopath to his face. And if you want a Lois Lane who's a damsel in distress, this ain't it. Amy Adams is Lois Lane. She ain't it. If you want a damsel in distress, there's some other Lois Lanes that I would point to. But Amy Adams, no, this isn't it. She is not the damsel you are looking for. And it really bothers me that these critics put it out there just because the one time she falls off a skyscraper because she's physically assaulted and pushed off it by Lex Luthor, and Superman saves her. Again, I've said this a million times in these reviews. If you never had a moment in a Superman film where Superman rescues Lois Lane, you have lost the plot of what makes Superman such a magnificent character, and some of the romance of the Superman and Lois Lane is the comic book romance in comics. I know a lot of people would point to Batman and Selena Kyle, Bruce Wayne and Selena Kyle. I would also say one of the high ups. But Superman and Lois Lane, that's it. That's the romance. That is the comic book romance of the ages. So if you have a Superman film and you don't have Superman rescuing Lois Lane in some big dramatic way, you lost the plot. I'm sorry. That to me would be a cause to raise the flag and say, "Hey, I don't think this is a very good Superman movie." So I think there's romance in that. There's a need to show him saving her so that she realizes what he can do, what he can do for her, not only physically to save her, but also as an emotional thing. Superman is always there when she needs him. And so by the end of BVS, when he's dead, that's a big change. Now she's going to be going through life without having a guy who can hear her heartbeat, who can fly up and rescue her when she's pushed off of skyscrapers. There's a character beat in there. There's character analysis in something like that, where it makes on the outside to these critics makes her look like a damsel in distress, and actually plays into Lois Lane's story arc in the film. It just bothers. That's one of my biggest annoyances with these reviews, is they just call Lois Lane a damsel in distress and don't take in anything else to consider. They don't give any examples. They just paint her with this, oh, she's a terrible Lois Lane. It makes her sound like she's helpless. And she's not. Lois Lane is one of the big driving forces in the Batman v Superman narrative. She's one of the big important characters. And especially when you go and watch the Ultimate Edition, boy, is she investigating stuff even more in that version of the film. So it really bothers me that they boil Lois Lane down to almost nothing in these reviews. And she is a huge, huge, crucial, integral part of the narrative of Dawn of Justice. It boggles my mind that they don't even go into Lois Lane as a character when she is so important in the film. I just don't understand. I would like to think it's just laziness. I would like to think they're just being lazy. Because if it's not just laziness, it means they had the ability to analyze her character and her story, and they just didn't. I would like to think that they just didn't want to do it. That would make me feel better about these movie critics. Because to think that they knew and recognized the things about those characteristics of Lois's story, and then they just didn't do anything about it. I don't want to say out loud what that makes me think of these critics, but it's not good. It's not good. So I'll just say that it seems like they're lazy and they just don't want to include it. I guess that's the better way to look at it. All right, continuing on, it says, quote, and this is something that's said earlier in the review, overlong, underdeveloped, and almost entirely humorless, Batman v Superman Dawn of Justice may please diehard fans by pitting two DC icons against each other. Everyone else may want to wait for the next Marvel movie, unquote. This is how this critic decides to end this review. This is a short one. I might understand why you would use the word overlong. I get it. 2.5 hours, long time. But even that is stretching it, because 2.5 hours is not that unheard of a total runtime. So to use overlong, I just want to reiterate, not that great of a critique. The word underdeveloped is a description of Dawn of Justice that I would disagree with. I think every scene in BVS matters. All characters are developed well, even in the theatrical cut, even in the one where 30 minutes of the film is cut out. I think that the characters are well developed in even that version that this critic would have seen. This critic would have seen the theatrical cut back in 2016. I think the story has a setup and a payoff. It has forward momentum. It's going somewhere. It's always driving towards something. And it was actually also foreshadowing what was to come even after Batman v Superman. So to say that it was underdeveloped is I I don't even know what underdeveloped means in in regards to Batman v Superman. It's almost overdeveloped. It's almost too developed. So I don't understand the use of underdeveloped there. And we talked about it before, but almost entirely humorless is not a great description for this film. In fact, I would even call it a lie. So I think there is humor and levity and comedic relief, and I think if you disagree, if you, I had one guy who called me a liar at Dragon Con. You can look it up on this YouTube channel. Look up Batman v Superman humor or something like that. Um, I said that Batman v Superman had humor in the film, and a guy in the audience, under his breath, said that I was speaking lies, and he got up and left. There's actually more humor in it than this reviewer is letting on. There's actually a lot of moments where that make me laugh, and I've covered that before in one of these other live streams. But it's just a lie. It's just a flat out lie. I would be curious, because this reviewer ends it saying, "Everyone else may want to wait for the next Marvel movie." So I'd be curious if I were a person who wanted to understand more of that final sentence. I would maybe look at a Rafer Guzmán's 3 out of 4 star review of Captain America: Civil War, which would have, I believe, during this time of BBS, would have been the next Marvel movie if I have my timeline correct. From May 3rd, 2016, that is the Captain America: Civil War review from Guzmán. If you would like to take a look at it, you can find it in the video description of this live stream and this video. If you just want to see for yourself if the next Marvel movie perhaps got a better score and a better review and a more serious take from this reviewer than than Batman v Superman: Dawn of Justice, you know what? I'm going to let you decide. I'm not going to speak on that. I'm not going to talk about whether or not I think this reviewer is biased, whether or not this reviewer just wanted to talk about Captain America: Civil War because maybe this person is more of a Marvel fan. I'm not going to speak to what I think is happening here. But I'm going to let you decide for yourself. You click on the review. You let me know in the comments what you think about Guzmán's Captain America: Civil War review in comparison to the Dawn of Justice review that we went through here, and see if, in your opinion, if Guzmán held the same standard for both films that he held the standard for Dawn of Justice. So I would be really curious if what you think about that. So I'll let the the viewers take a look. I kind of looked over it myself, but I'm gonna let y'all decide what you think about that. All right, so let me hop into the live chat before we get out of here because this was a short one compared to some of the runtime for this review was too short. So I guess that makes it a bad review. I don't know. Let's see. In the comments of the live chat, Mike says Lex Luthor's intelligence is well known. Appearance and dialogue show how knowledgeable he is, and his reach is far. He has access to CIA and Star. I guess is Stars. Are you referring to Star Labs? Yeah, he's able to have casual meetings with senators, U.S. senators. So Lex Luthor has a lot of assets to give him information that he needs. Let's see. Lost It to Bostic says the only real damsel in distress is Ma Kent. Lois is headstrong and determined to get to the bottom of her stories. She has more journalistic integrity than most modern journalists. I agree with that. I used to work in news, and the news media today is a garbage. So to see Lois Lane doing what she's doing in Batman v Superman, wonderful. I wish all journalists were actually like that. I wish she was a real journalist. But I think that's a good point that you make about, the only real damsel is, Ma Kent, which is true. She gets kidnapped and she's, held hostage and she can't save herself, and Batman has to come in and save her, which I would argue that it is that way because there's a story plot, a character beat for Batman in that he gets to save a Martha. There's a reason for that. It's not just trying to make her a damsel in distress because we need somebody to save. There's a reason for that. So I don't mind it as much. But I think technically when you look at damsel in distresses, I think Mawkett, I think you're right. I think is a better example of that. Because Lois saves Superman at one point. She goes into the water and fishes him out of the water to bring him back up. She's no damsel. And also Lostic Debostic in the chat says, yes, there's the real truth. Comparing BVS to the MCU. It's not Marvel. That's why it's bad. You said it, not me. I wasn't gonna say it, but thank you for sharing your thoughts. Yeah, so also Lone Wolf Gaming Plus says BVS took the characters of Batman and Superman seriously. I found it beautiful and very tragic. Me too. I actually really like that BVS takes these characters seriously. One of the reasons that I didn't continue with the MCU, I probably talked about this many times, but for anybody who has not seen previous live streams, I watched all of the MCU up until Ant-Man. And when I watched Ant-Man, there was a scene where Evangeline Lilly's character, I don't even care, I don't remember her character's name, but she was talking about her dead mother. And I think this might have come into play in Ant-Man and the Wasp 2 or whatever it was called. I don't know. I didn't watch it. But she was talking about her dead mother. And it was actually very emotional because I've lost a parent. My dad died in 2006, and I was sort of really drawn into her emotions because I can understand what that felt like. And I was really into it. I was really kind of leaning in to that scene. And at the end of that scene, I believe his character's name is Scott Lang. Paul Rudd's character comes into the room, puts out a quippy joke at the end of the scene, and man, it just sucked all of that out for me. Every bit of emotion, every bit of drama, every bit of connection to the character that I had just gone in an instant with one quippy one-liner, and it just was all gone. Just literally sucked it out of the room for me. And that was the moment I said, "You know what? I don't think the MCU is for me anymore. I think this is for other people. This is not for Rebecca Johnson." And that's why I stopped watching the MCU. I have watched a lot of the Marvel TV shows. I think the TV shows are quite good. Agent Carter, I did like. I really loved the Loki series. Loki was, man, right up my alley. So I think Marvel on TV, I think, is more up for, up my alley, up, kind of my speed and what I want out of things. But the MCU in terms of the movies, oh boy, uh, the emotion was not there for me. And that's what I liked about BVS and what I liked about the Snyderverse is that it took these really iconic characters who are larger than life. I mean, they're comparable to Greek gods, Greek myths, and made them feel real, made them feel like characters I could connect to on a personal basis, and made them feel like they were three-dimensional, that they had tragedies in their lives. They had struggles. They had people they care about. They have loves. They have loves that die. They have, people that get separated from. I mean, it's just you feel for. I mean, I feel for those characters, and so I would personally rather have more of that than everything be a quippy banter, 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 quippy joke. I can't get into it. I can't get into it. And I know we're all, as audience members, we're all sort of built differently. So I can understand why some people gravitate more towards the quippy bantery jokes because they don't want to have to deal with the tragedies and the struggles and the triumphs of the characters. But I like that. I like that. I like to be challenged when I go to see a film, even if it's going to make me cry or make me feel big feelings. I like that a lot. Um, Mask of Shy kind of goes back to the Martha as damsel in distress and says that sadly the theatrical version cut that sweet scene with Clark calling Martha on the phone at the Kent house. And yeah, I think there's a lot of layers to that because you get to see a really sweet scene between mother and son talking about his father and sort of, Clark sort of putting himself in Jonathan's uh, mindset and trying to understand his adopted father, but it's also a tie into the the nightmares that go on. All of our I think all of our main characters, except I don't think Diana does, but Clark, Bruce, and Lois all have trouble sleeping, and I've always thought that that was really interesting. So that's a good example from Clark, is that he's not sleeping. He calls his mother in the middle of the night. David says, it's funny how Snyderverse recycles Chris Reeve tropes. Lois fishes Superman out of the water like Miss Tussmacher once did, but she's less harassing than Miss T. Yeah, well, that is the case. I mean, Miss Tussmacher, I think I had a little bit of crush on Superman, but yeah, Miss Tussmacher did that in, I believe that was Superman the movie. Was that the first one? And she rescues him and helps him with the kryptonite situation that he's in. So yeah, it is a little bit of a trope that other people have to help Superman sometimes, especially with kryptonite. Let's see. And then David says, and then Superman has to mentally ignore the effects of kryptonite to keep on flying. Where have we seen that before? Good question. Yeah, so I think those are all good thoughts. And thank you for joining me for another week and another review as we continue on. We're very close. And I say we because other people are accompanying me on this journey as we go through the top critics of Rotten Tomatoes. I think this is a valuable series, not just because I'm doing it, but because even this week, I saw some people talking about Batman v Superman's bad score on Rotten Tomatoes. And I thought, if that person tweeting that out had actually ever read any of these reviews, they would understand that the, the percentage point is a bunch of nonsense. But so hopefully other people find this valuable that we're going through this, and I think it's helped me be a better reviewer of films and television shows, which I do quite regularly on Supergirl Radio, supergirlradio.com if you want to check us out. But I definitely think this helps me when I look at movies, when I watch films, and how I interpret them and analyze them and think about them. So I'm hoping that others who are watching this and joining me in the live chat, I hope that you all get the same value out of that, out of this that I do. Well, I think that's going to do it for this week's live stream because we covered that review pretty quickly. If you missed this live, I hope you'll consider sharing your thoughts in the comment section below. If you ever have a question about when I'll be live, check this YouTube channel at youtube.com/duckmilkprod. I'll be scheduling streams in advance when I'm available. Most Sunday nights at 9 p.m. Eastern, but occasionally, sometimes I might be working or out of town or what have you. I just can't do it that week. So hopefully it will be a consistent Sunday nights at 9 p.m. Eastern, but just check the YouTube channel and you'll always know when I'm when I'm scheduling them. And you can also get a reminder for when I go live. So that's the advantage to that. If you have a BVS review that you would like to share that you thought did a good job, we a lot of times on these videos we talk about reviews that maybe we didn't think it did a great job. But if you have a BVS review that you would like to share that you think added some value to you as a reader or a viewer, let me know. Drop me a link in the comment section. I'll make sure that everybody gets a chance to see it. So please share those things with me, and I will in turn share them with the class. All right. Well, I think we have covered a lot of ground here. Thank you all for joining me. But now I'm going to turn it over to a voiceover Rebecca, and she's going to wrap up this live stream. If you would like to see more of these live streams, make sure to subscribe to this YouTube channel at youtube.com/duckmilkprod. If you'd like to keep in touch with me personally, you can follow me on Instagram at the Derby Kid and on Vero at Derby Kid. You can hear my thoughts on the CW Supergirl TV series and all things Kara Zor-El over at Supergirl Radio by visiting supergirlradio.com, subscribing wherever you listen to podcasts, or subscribing to the DC TV Podcast YouTube channel, which you can find at youtube.com/DCTV Podcasts. Also, please check out the Justice League Universe podcast for in-depth analysis on the DCEU films, including Batman v Superman: Dawn of Justice. And before I go, I hope that this live stream video series will inspire you to think more critically and thoughtfully about film and storytelling. I'd like to leave you with this quote from C.S. Lewis's book titled An Experiment in Criticism. The truth is not that we need the critics in order to enjoy the authors, but that we need the authors to enjoy the critics. My name is Rebecca Johnson, and I love Batman v Superman: Dawn of Justice. And I am publishing a series of videos exploring the reasons why I am such a fan of Zack Snyder's film. In this series, you'll find my thoughts on topics that matter to me, like Larry Fong's cinematography, character analysis on Lex Luthor and Lois Lane, the Christian imagery, what I find hopeful about the movie, and yes, I'll address the critical reception. So if you're interested in any of those topics, I hope you will get something out of this series and find out why Batman v Superman: Dawn of Justice has had such a profound, heartfelt, and inspiring impact on my life.